Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. This week is going to be a little bit different than my others as it is a collab between me and my good friend LEZA, who is much more, I guess, sort of knowledgeable about this very specific case that remains unsolved to this day. It's also the inspiration for the hit TV series Twin Peaks, so hopefully that will draw in your interest. So yeah, have a listen. I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you guys at the outro. Bye.
It was a warm summer's day in 1908 when the body of Hazel Irene Drew, just barely 20, was discovered resting face down at the edge of a farmer's pond just outside of the industrial town of Troy, New York. Having been missing for about a week since walking off her job as a governess to Troy's elite, Hazel was found to have been killed by blunt force trauma to the back of the head. Murder. The investigation into her death lasted a little over a month and became a worldwide tabloid sensation. She was a pretty, popular girl, it turned out, had been living a double life of both a good time girl and quiet, bookish churchgoer. In her short life, Hazel had rubbed elbows with the most powerful people in Troy society. She was in a position to know secrets. The investigation into her death was rushed and silenced far too quickly, naming no suspects and simply moving on, destroying the career of the district attorney who presided over the case. To this day, Hazel's killer has never been brought to justice. 80 years after her death, tales of her ghost walking in the woods near where she died would inspire the character of Laura Palmer in the hit television show Twin Peaks. In recent years, a new generation of amateur detectives have taken an interest in the case, but again, without naming a concrete suspect. The mystery of Hazel endures, taking on new life as fresh eyes study the case and new evidence is uncovered. The story of a girl in over her head, gone too soon, continues to capture the hearts and minds of true crime buffs everywhere. A recent documentary, Who Killed Hazel Drew, made locally in Troy, brought the case to new audiences. The website attached to the film project, hazeldrew.com, is a great place to start if you want to dip into the rabbit hole that is this strange and tragic case.
Perfect. Thank you, LEZA. Now, we're just going to go over the timeline for this because it is quite interesting sort of how quickly this whole thing came about in regards to when she went missing and the events that led up to it. For example, it was July 6th, giving no prior notice or any signs of discontent in regards to her position. Hazel quit her job as a governess at the Carey, is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure.
Yep.
I'll blame it on the accent. And leaves at around 10 a.m. in the morning. And during the next few days, she is seen at a train station in Troy, New York, and is just seen essentially just apparently going about her daily life, but at the same time, her actions throughout the week seemed off. Would you like to go into a bit more detail about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a strange week, you know, it's a week in which plans are made, and the plans that are like, she tells people she's going to go to Lake George for the 4th of July. That's what she says, but she doesn't. She doesn't go there at any point. And as you said, she's hanging around the train station a lot, which was, that actually, even though it was unusual behavior for a young lady, it was not unusual behavior for Hazel, who did hang around the Troy train station quite a great deal. And she always was giving people stories about where she was going. It just seemed like she was going to a lot of places. She was going to New York. She would go up to Providence, Rhode Island. She would go up to Boston. So she was doing quite a lot of traveling at that time. You know, this was a time when women were starting to get a little more independent, young women. But even considering that and considering what a governess salary would be, it seemed like she had a lot of mobility that was unusual.
Yeah.
And then, you know, then there's just all these days that go by after her body from going up to Sand Lake, which it turns out is where she actually went, and she was spotted very close to where her body ended up being found. It took like 5 days before they actually found her body. So this is like a whole chunk of time. This is a whole week of just nebulous, strange activities, and then she's dead.
Yeah, and even when you think about it, a week is a long time to be doing this kind of stuff, and just like, okay, there's just a bunch of empty space of just like, where was she? What was she doing? Like, was she aware that she could potentially be in danger? Like, that her life would end so soon? Like, was this something, was she trying to prevent it? Or, yeah.
Yeah, well, she was very dressed up for the occasion. So
yeah, that was another weird thing.
So the crazy thing is, like, the reason I got involved with this case is because this past year I moved to Troy, New York.
Yeah.
And as I've been looking into all the aspects of this case, like, for example, the last place she was seen in Troy before her weird week got weirder was literally a street over from where I live, where her dressmaker lived. So that was where she stopped, and it was very late at night, and she was just very like, you gotta make me a shirtwaist, like, right now. And she like got her out of bed, like, you have to make me this fancy shirt. It's like,
in the morning.
This is custom made clothing. So it's like people were starting to buy off the rack stuff at that time. You could get off the rack things. So getting something custom made meant you had money to make something nice. And the fact that she wanted something custom made showed this was an important, dare I say, date that she wanted to be ready for.
Yeah. And something that she was like, again, we don't know, but she could have been very excited for, and just like, oh, I really want to go on this date. And to be so well dressed in heels, like Victorian heels, and going up into that sort of area, you just go, why? Like, there's a little bit of like bush area around Melbourne where I live, and I just like, I'm not sure how that is comparison to Troy, but I just go, there is no way you could not pay me to go into that sort of like landscape in heels. I can barely walk down the pavement.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, downtown Troy is very nice, and especially in those days, it was extremely nice. It was booming. Like, it was doubling population. There was a lot of industry. So walking downtown Troy in heels, that's normal. But that's not where she was going. She was actually going up to Sand Lake, where right about around where her family's farm was, where she grew up, actually. Yeah. So it's just very out of the way. It's not. I actually, this summer, I ran and checked out Teal's Pond, which is where her body was found. I ran in there really quick. There's nowhere to park. It's very hard to you gotta have somebody like drop you off. And it's private property, so that's dicey too. Yeah. I ran in there, and it's just very treacherous terrain. It's just very swampy. There's a lot of like brambles. It's just like, it's woods. It's woods and farmland. So it's not a place you want to be walking all decked out. So the people that saw her, or that said they saw her walking along the road in that direction, they saw a very well-dressed woman stopping to like pick berries and stuff, like just all dressed up. And she had coins in her glove too, which meant she was had fare for the train. So she was, but she was traveling light. She had left her suitcase at the station, which is also weird.
Yeah, just like, and I think that's why people would, us probably still now, even just so concerned, because it's just like, why would she be doing all these things, and what would be so important or so dear to her that you would have to go through all this to get somewhere? And then she ended up like murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lying too. I mean, she was lying. She told people she was going to Lake George. She did not go to Lake George. Lake George is it's a different spot. Lake George at the time, and still, but especially at the time, it was a place for people to, have a good time. So, people who lived in Albany, or even in New York, would go up to Lake George for the weekend to just have a good time. It's just a beautiful lake, lots of entertainment, probably a lot of parties. So you go up there to to have a nice time. You know, where she went in Sand Lake, it's just kind of like, you know, there's not much there, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And if like, yeah, and since that she was lying about it and not telling people where she was going, but at the same time was so eager to get there, it's just like,
Mhm.
okay, this is something that you're clearly really excited about, but why can't you tell anyone about it? Like if you're going on this like, you know, hot date to the lake, you'd just be like, okay, you'd probably maybe want to tell at least one person just in case it gets like downhill
Yeah,
or something. Like, you know,
yeah.
look out for your girlfriends. But no, since she couldn't tell anyone or felt as if
Well,
she couldn't tell, you just go,
well,
okay, what's up?
well, you know, it is possible she did tell someone and
Oh,
they just
yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. You just never know, especially since it happened so long ago. You just go, okay, we can't question all these people again.
They're dead,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah,
Because yeah, it happened in 1908. So you go, okay, they're probably long gone by now.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, we want to move on to this sort of media, like, and how the media reacted to it. As you said, it was just like became this huge, like, international story.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that it did. I need to look into what all the articles were um, internationally. I haven't even dove into that, but the person that actually wrote that intro that I read, and who's they're actually working on a book about it. They're doing a lot of research and found all that, and I was very surprised to hear that it was an international story. But locally, I think what struck me, you know, I think it was shocking for everybody, for sure. It was definitely shocking. And something that I discovered recently was that, you know, if you Google Hazel, you'll see several different images of her, and it's a little confusing to know why there's different images because there's only actually one photograph. Um, and I realized that the newspapers actually were doctoring the pictures to make her look older, and she actually looked quite a bit younger and more sort of round and girlish. And they kind of raised the exposure, intensified the shadows to make her look kind of more vampy. So it kind of, you know, it just feels like there was this culture of, you know, and then looking at how rushed the case was, um, this culture of like, well, you know, it seems like she was doing stuff she shouldn't, so maybe it's for the best, and let's
Right.
just slip it under the rug.
Yeah, like victim blaming and ensuring that no one really asks too many questions, which
Mm-hmm.
again just adds to the whole intrigue of it now because it's just like, why was that swept under the rug? There was this perfectly like she'd never done anything to hurt anyone. Like this should have been a case that was looked into, and
Mm-hmm.
yet they just completely, essentially, like swept it under the rug.
Yeah, I mean, she was liked around town. It seems, you know, a lot of people knew her, they saw her, but it seems, you know, kind of like Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks, who Hazel was the muse for this character. Um, you know, the surface was not the truth, and all these people that thought they knew her, maybe they didn't actually know her that well as they thought.
Yeah, or at least to that extent. Yeah, definitely.
And
And
yeah,
yeah,
she was a governess. It says on the I do recommend the Hazel Drew website, but there is something they have misnamed. She was not at any point was she a maid or a housekeeper. She never did housework. She was a governess from the get-go when she started at 14. She got the job because her aunt was doing that kind of work as well, housekeeping and doing different things. So Hazel got the job of being a governess. And so she would work for a family for a few years, then she'd work for another family, and she was working for the top political families in Troy.
yeah. Another thing that's interesting because you just go, okay, you're with the children the whole time and you're clearly trusted by this family. So what would you see? And like what
Yeah.
secrets would you hold on to?
Especially if you're in families that are powerful, you're definitely going to be
Mm.
hearing stuff for sure.
Yeah, even if you want to or don't, because you know, kids don't have a filter. Or
Yeah,
even if
or at
you walk into a
parties.
room or just happen to overhear something.
And they were very much like, she was not like the help, like she would eat at the dinner table with the family and everything. And
Yeah,
obviously spending cash and all that.
yeah. So that it wasn't as if like she was very much a trusted member of these families in her own way.
Yeah, no, she was in the inner circles for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't as if like, people stopped talking because it's like, oh, the governess is here, we better not start talking about, personal matters. But
Well,
just
that's the thing. They're gonna think she's an innocent girl, like she's a good girl, like
even if we
uh,
did say something, she probably wouldn't blab.
right, because she wants to keep her job.
Yeah.
So that stuff like that is what, then you wonder, well, why did she die? Was she blackmailing someone? Was she saying, you do this or else I'm going to tell everybody about this or that?
Mm. It's just like, again, all these sort of like empty space where like 100 different things could have possibly happened, and we have no way to sort of really pinpoint it. So it's just super interesting.
Well, there's circumstantial evidence,
Yeah, as well.
like I said, there is a book we're working on. So we have a suspect, and I can't say what it is. We need the people to read the book,
Yeah.
and nobody has named the suspect.
Really?
So we're very, very excited, and we're, looking at, obviously, like you said, there's no witnesses we can talk to. There's no DNA evidence we can look at. A lot of her letters were burned. A lot of the case papers went up in a fire when the police station had a fire. So there's just like so much missing info. But there is some circumstantial evidence that we are piecing together to try to place our suspect at the scene of the crime, at the time of the crime.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to link Clash books in the bio. Just like check it out, please.
Cool. Yeah, we're looking at a 2022 release, so
Sweet.
late that year. But yeah, it's it's a really sad case, because it feels like one of those things that just shouldn't have had to happen.
Yeah. Like, and even so, it's one of those things that even if it did, like, since it did happen, it should have been solved and it should have been like treated with the same sort of urgency as any other murder cases.
Right. But when it's your word against somebody that is important in town,
Mm,
that's when politics comes into play, and people don't
yeah.
want to lose their jobs, or don't want to lose the perks they're getting from said person or something like that. I mean, as we've seen with a lot of recent cases this year, powerful men are very well protected,
Mm,
and it takes a lot to take them down.
yeah, definitely. And it just takes a lot of sacrifice as well. So, and like, almost understandably, like most people, if they're not in a position to be able to do that, they won't. And unfortunately, I think Hazel is just one of those people that unfortunately just got lost in the crossfire, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like she was living some sort of a double life, and the extent of it, we don't really know. They found those letters in her suitcase. They talk about it. They talk about it on the website, and it's like, it's really the only hard lead they have. This guy with the initials AES, love letters.
Oh,
So it was clear there was romance happening, and there was also a kimono in her suitcase, which
oh yeah,
is
I've heard about that.
unusual.
Yeah.
It's kind of it can be seen as an indication that she was doing something, you
Yeah.
know.
So yeah, even to this day, Hazel's murderer was never found. We don't know what happened to her. However, we do have some great things coming from Clash books in regards to discovering who she was as a person, and hopefully, digging deeper into why her tragic death wasn't given the attention it so deserved. I want to thank LEZA again so much for coming in and agreeing to do this collab with me. I really appreciate it. Go check out, she has this great poetry collection out called Trash Panda. She also runs Clash Books with her partner Christoph. And they also published my debut novella, Helena. So that's really awesome. Yeah, and I will see you guys next week. We'll have another creepypasta hopefully. But yeah, I hope to see you guys there. See you later. Bye.